It's always a great joy to discover an overlooked gem in your travels where you can get away from the most famous cities while still experiencing a rich cultural treasure without the crowds or high prices. A perfect spot for this kind of low-key visit is Portugal's capital of Lisbon, a minor treasure among the world's great cities. Beautifully set on the water's edge among undulating hills and broad valleys, this city has an appealing, old-fashioned, slightly worn-out, authentic quality that is hard to find in Western Europe's other capitals. Don't tell anyone else, but this out-of-the-way prize is something of a secret place that has not yet been trampled by mass tourism, despite being loaded with fascinating attractions. Lisbon is a compact area easily covered on foot, with occasional help from train, bus, and trolley rides to get you around. The city is divided into distinct neighborhoods. A historic business district in the center called Baixa is surrounded on the west by the trendy Chiado and Bairro Alto neighborhoods, and Alfama on the east, the medieval Old Town. A fourth district called Belem is a few miles away on the waterfront, easily reached by public transport. These sites can be covered in a couple of days, with a third day left to visit the nearby towns of Sintra, Estoril, and Cascais, with the palace at Queluz. The main shopping and entertainment districts of Lisbon are right in the heart of town. Rossio Square is really in the center of everything. Rossio is like a living room for the city, and it's the most common place for friends to meet, with its many attractive cafes and restaurants all around it. The grand building on the north end is the National Theatre, which holds many cultural performances throughout the year. And the beautiful Parisian fountain in the middle supports a statue that represents the Portuguese King Peter IV, who was also the first emperor of Brazil. After 300 years of being a Portuguese colony, Brazil declared its independence in 1822, cutting off a lucrative supply of cheap imported gold, sugar, and coffee, and further pushing Portugal into the economic backwaters of Europe. The fountains in the middle are perfect fountains, and it's surrounded by very attractive sidewalk cafes, shops, and bars and restaurants of all types. Theater on one end, the shops and trees all around the perimeter, obelisk in the middle, and two major fountains anchoring each end of the square. This is really what you want to see when you come to Europe to enjoy the old atmosphere, the historic sites in the center of these great cities. And here in Lisbon, it's as charming as it gets. Within a few blocks of Rossio Square, you're going to find hundreds of shops and many more restaurants and cafes all around this central square. There are several metro lines that come together here, and a lot of buses come through, and there's also a major commuter train station here right at Rossio Square. So it really is very much the center of Lisbon. There are three main streets running parallel through the middle of this shopping zone, called Gold, Silver, and August. That is Rua Douro, Rua da Prata, and Rua Augusta, which is the main pedestrian lane in the center. Quite a few sidewalk cafes will entice you to sit and watch the passing parade of local shoppers. No cars allowed there at all. This is a great spot for people watching, for eating, and for shopping. This is the Baixa district of town. It's very much the commercial center of the city. There's all kinds of interesting cafes and little back streets and friendly people here. This grid of retail bliss is somewhat reminiscent of an old-fashioned mini Manhattan, making a great place to hang out for a few hours. Lisbon's historic business district, called the Baixa, extends from Rossio for 9 blocks to the waterfront and just 4 blocks wide, making a wonderfully compact place to stroll. This area was reconstructed in the mid-18th century after Lisbon was devastated by the Great Earthquake of 1755, which was one of the worst catastrophes to ever hit a European city. The massive quake and subsequent fire leveled most of the city, and killed somewhere between 15,000 and 60,000 residents, with especially severe damage in the central part of town. Following reconstruction from the earthquake, the ground floors of buildings in this central part of town were occupied by shops, with offices on the next two floors and apartments on the upper two floors, making for a vibrant, self-contained neighborhood. Much of this original plan has survived, so there are still people living today in the center of Lisbon. This seems a natural, efficient urban pattern, and yet it is rare to see such logic in most of our own modern cities. At the end of Rua Augusta, walk through the arch into the largest square in town, the Praça do Comércio, surrounded on three sides by elegant government buildings from the late 18th century. This large square is one of the signature sights of Lisbon, with its uniform arcades, glorious Arco da Victoria triumphal arch, an impressive equestrian statue in the center representing King Joseph I. And it's flanked by two hills. On one side, the hill of the Alfama, the old town, and we'll be taking an extensive walk up through there. It's a fascinating place to visit. And on the other side is another hill which has two districts called Bairro Alto and the Chiado. And this too is a great neighborhood for exploring. Altogether, only a couple of miles wide and about a mile and a half from north to south. So let's call it 3 or 4 square miles, which makes it a manageable and fascinating zone to explore. You'll find many streets of great interest here. So let's go up the hill to Bairro Alto and the Chiado and have a look around. You can get up this hill on the west edge of downtown in several different ways, depending on where you are. In the middle of the shopping area of the Baixa, you will see a metal tower, which is the famous Santa Justa elevator that was built in 1902. The elevator is quite historic. It's over 100 years old, designed somewhat in the style of Eiffel, but actually designed by local Portuguese engineers. You actually purchase a ticket to ride up this elevator, and you can see how popular it is. You've got to wait online to go up this elevator unless you get here quite early in the morning or quite late in the evening. All day long there's a throng, mostly of tourists, who are going up the elevator to just experience the thrill of the ride and the view from the top. Alternatively, you can take your pick of a couple of other routes. There's a funicular on the north end of the Baixa district. That's a good way to get up. Or there's a free route from Baixa up to the Chiado district by taking some escalators. You head into the sporting goods store. It's in the building that also has Fnac, a major multimedia French department store chain. And you go up several escalators. You might do a little shopping while you're in here. It's a lovely modern mall. And you will soon arrive at the top of this series of escalators that will bring you to the main street of Rua Garret up in the Chiado. The hill with Chiado and Bairro Alto is not all that high, so you can just simply walk up a couple of different streets from down below and easily reach it in a few minutes. One excellent route up the hill is along Rua do Carmo, which is a very elegant shopping street. For a century, this has been one of the major shopping destinations in Lisbon, and it'll connect you right up into Chiado and to Bairro Alto. Curiously, along the street, they were having some kind of a teach-in. It was the labor unions having a talk right in the street about the importance of education and full funding for public education. And they're doing this in a most public way, right in the middle of the street. You run into all kinds of things on Carmo Street. Or the same street at the other end is called Rua Nova do Almada. That's coming up from the river end of town, the south end. So either way, it makes a nice walk. And then we ran into another kind of public education event. These are some university students hazing the incoming freshmen. It's an honored tradition in Portugal. And so there's a variety of ways to get up the hill, all of them quite easy. It just depends on where you are, where you're coming from, and how quickly you want to get up there, whether you want to ride up the elevator, the funicular, take the escalator, or walk up. But no matter how you do it, be sure to get up on this hill and have a walk around, and you'll see how really fascinating it is once you get up here. Now we're walking along the main shopping street of the Chiado. This is Rua Garret, and it's just a couple blocks long and lined with wonderful boutiques and all price ranges. It's not terribly expensive up here, but there's very nice quality along Rua Garret. This area had a serious fire back in 1988. Part of the Carmo Street and Garret were burned badly. 18 buildings were destroyed, but it's all been fully reconstructed since then and back in business. So this is a great place to hang out. And at the upper end of Rua Garret, you're going to run into some terrace cafes. So it's a good place to kick back and take a break, have a drink, do some people watching. There's a metro station that will bring you right here if you like. And perhaps pop into the famous cafe, Brasileira. There's a statue of the poet out front who used to hang out here a long time ago, Fernando Pessoa. And the interior is like a museum. It's got original decor, and the locals hang out here and pass the time of day. So it is not just for tourists. This whole neighborhood at the top of Rua Garret is really a lovely spot. The street widens, there's some intersections, and it's Largo do Chiado here. There's trams in the neighborhood, there's nice sidewalks, there's a big plaza where people just love to hang out and sit back at the obelisk in the middle. It's a very casual spot. Some people just spend the afternoon here, meeting their friends, reading the newspaper, having a snack. There's a nice little coffee bar right in the middle of the Largo Chiado, and there's restaurants around it. And you can catch a ride on tram number 28 if you want to get up here. That's yet another way to get to Chiado from down below in the Baixa. These trams are very popular with the locals and with the tourists, so you might have to wait online at a bus stop to get a spot on the tram. And then when you've seen enough of the Chiado, you just take a right turn here off of Rua Loreto, and then you will have stepped right into Bairro Alto.